Namo Ramana, prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we commence today's Satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by the chanting of Muktaka Trayam by Nandakumarji.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लां वरदरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam Hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham Hridaya kuhara madhye Kevalam brahma matram Yaham maham iti sakshat Atmarupena bhati Hridi vishamanasa swam chinvata majjata va pavana chalana rodha atmanishto bhavatvam. Deham mrinmayavat jadatmakam aham buddhirnatasyastyato naham tata bhava shukti samay siddhatma sadbhataha koham bhavayuta kuto varadhiya drishtatmanishtatmana soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam. सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the chanting of verses from Upadesha Saram of Bhagavan Ramana by Ashwini Balaji and Umashi.
नमो रमण. वायुरोदना क्रियते मना जानपक्षिवद्रोदसाधनम् चित्रवायवाश्चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलका लयविनाशने उभयरोदने लयगतं पुनर्भवति नोमृतम् प्राणबन्धनात् हीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनात् नाशमेत्यद नष्टमानसोत्कृष्टयोगिना कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तितिं यत दृष्ट्यवारितं चित्तमात्मना चित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आर्जवात् वृत्तयस्त्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिताः वृत्तयो मनो विद्यहं मनः अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्मत ऐपतत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहमिनाशभाज्यहमहन्तय स्फुरति हृत्स्वयं परमपूर्णस. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with Ramananjali Sangeeta. The first song will be by Srimati Radha. This will be followed by an offering by Savitri Krishna and Jai Shri Ram Krishna. And the third song will be by Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be singing a song written by Sri Ramanatha Brahmachari and the music is by Sri L. Krishnan. அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளே துமிலாபதமீந்தனே அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளே துமிலாபதமீந்தனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் ஐயன் ரமணன் அருள் தந்ததனால் பொய்யாவினை போன வகை அறியேன் உய்யும் வழியன் உளமுற்றதனால் மெய்யன்பினை வந்து விழுங்கியதே அருளே உருவாய் அமரும் ரமணன் இருளே துமிலா பதமீந்தனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருணாபுரி வாழருள் வேதியனாம் கருணாமுகிலோன் கவலை களைவோன் மரணாதிய மயக்கம் மற்றருளும் தருணாருண ஞானதயா பரனே அருளே உருவாய் அமரும் ரமணன் இருளே துமிலா பதமீந்தனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் சிந்தாமணியாகிய चिन्मयने मन्दाकिनि मैन्द महाशयने कन्दा करुणालय देशिकने எந்தாப்பமகற்றியருள்குகனே அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் சரணாகதியாயடையும் தமியேன் மரணாதிமயக்கமறுத்தருள்வாய் கருணாநிதியாகிய வேங்கடமா அருணாச்சலமாயமர் ஜோதியனே அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன். நமோ ரமண.
पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः वेदशीर्षजय सारसङ्ग्रहम् पञ्चरत्नम् अरुणाचलस्य वेदशीर्षजय सारसङ्ग्रहम् पञ्चरत्नम् अरुणाचलस्य गुप्तमल्पमपि सर्वतोमुखं सूत्रभूतम् अतनोदिमं गुरुं गुप्तमल्पमपि सर्वतोमुखं सूत्रभूतम् अतनोदिमं गुरुं पक्षपातरहितं रमण अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः देववाचि सुतरामशिक्षितं काव्यगन्धरहितं च यद्यपि देववाचि सुतरामशिक्षितं काव्यगन्धरहितं च यद्यपि ग्रन्थकर्मणि तथापि संस्फुर भाषितानोचर भावसञ्चयम् ग्रन्थकर्मणि तथापि संस्फुर भाषितानोचर भावसञ्चयम् पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः पक्षपातरहितं रमणम् अनुस्मरामः अनुस्मरामः अनुस्मरामः.
ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमण.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 23rd verse of Ramana Suprabhatam, written by Shantananda Swami.
किं वारुणाचल विभूति कृता च कान्तिः किं वाद्रिनाथरमणस्य तडित्प्रभैव कोऽयं प्रकाश इति वेत्तुमशक्तधीर्मे श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम् किं वारुणाचलविभूतिकृता च कान्तिः किं वाद्रिनाथरमणस्य तडित्प्रभैव कोऽयं प्रकाश इति वेत्तुमशक्तधीर्मे श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम्. Good morning, O Bhagavan of Arunachala. My mind is not capable of deciding what kind of light this is. Is it the effulgence of glorious Arunachala or the scintillating lightning like splendor of Ramana, Lord of this hill? The limited mind can never get the limitless truth at any point of time. It is like the sweetest honey cannot be compared with the sweetness of the self. He is the truth, the presence, consciousness bliss, pouring the gracious rain of compassion. Ramana, the sweet one, who are you? You are the truth. I present you a song written by Shuddhananda Bharati, music by H.K. Narayana, Kannada translation by R.N. Jayagopal. ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ರಮಣ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ರಮಣ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ಮೂರ್ತಿನಿ ನಿನಗೆಂದು ಸಾಟಿ ನೀನೇ ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ಮೂರ್ತಿನಿ ನಿನಗೆಂದು ಸಾಟಿ ನೀನೇ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಮಳೆ ಕರೆದಿರುವ ಮಂದ ಮಾರುತವೇ ಕರುಣೆಯ ಹೊಳೆಯು ನೀನೇ ಕರುಣೆಯ ಹೊಳೆಯು ನೀನೇ ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ರಮಣ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಉತ್ತಮ ರಹಸ್ಯವೇ ಪ್ರೇಮಾಮೃತ ಶರಧಿಯೇ ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಉತ್ತಮ ರಹಸ್ಯವೇ ಪ್ರೇಮಾಮೃತ ಶರಧಿಯೇ ಬೋಧಿಸಿದ ಮೌನದ ಮಂತ್ರದ ಮಹಿಮೆಯೇ ಮಾತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸಲಹುದೇ ಮಾತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸಲಹುದೇ ಸತ್ಯವೂ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ರಮಣ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ನೀನೇ ಸವಿಜೇನ ಸಿಹಿಯೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿದರು ಸಮವಿರದ ಆನಂದದುನ್ಮಾದವೇ ಸವಿಜೇನ ಸಿಹಿಯೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿದರು ಸಮವಿರದ ಆನಂದದುನ್ಮಾದವೇ ಚಿಂತನೆಯು ತಂದಂತ ಶಿವಜ್ಞಾನ ಮುಕ್ತಿಯನ್ ಓಲಾಡೋ ಭವ್ಯ ನಿಧಿಯೇ ಓಲಾಡೋ ಭವ್ಯ ನಿಧಿಯೇ ಸತ್ಯವೋ ನಿತ್ಯ ಸದಾನಂದ ರಮಣ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೆ
Namo Ramana. We continue with the reading about Bhagavan by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our Satsang, we continue our readings from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We are now going to the next article from Dr. Sharda's article on Ramana, the Enigma, to an article from Professor K. Swaminathan entitled The Greatest Teacher the World Has Seen. Professor Swaminathan is introduced in this way: author of a biography on Ramana Maharshi, and has translated Muruganar's Guruvachika Kovai into English. The Garland of Guru Sayings was chief editor of the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, editor-in-chief of the Mountain Path for some years. We go into the reading of the article, The Greatest Teacher the World Has Seen, by Professor K. Swaminathan sir. Ernst Lehers, the German scientist-philosopher, in his book Man and Matter, cites again and again the simple wisdom of the child in Hans Christian Andersen's tale of the Emperor's New Clothes. This tale is known to most of us, that some weavers come and cleverly sell to the emperor no clothes by telling that the clothes that they weave can be seen only by intelligent people and fools cannot see those clothes. So finally no clothes are given to the king and money is taken. And when the king wears those no clothes and goes out in procession, everybody, not wanting to be called a fool because announcement has been made, they all admire the dress of the king, whereas a child in the procession, according to Andersen, exclaims, "Oh, the king is without robes." That tale has much more precedence in many of the earlier fairy tales. Ernst Lehers, the German scientist-philosopher, in his book Man and Matter, cites again and again the simple wisdom of the child in Hans Christian Andersen's tale of the Emperor's New Clothes. The child sees the naked truth hidden from his sophisticated seniors. Stories of Buddha, Jesus, and Saint Francis appeal straight to the children and childlike minds, and their interest spreads even to grown-ups who are too busy getting and spending to notice the sun and the stars. Saints and sages, who are the most normal people we know and who prefigure the evolutionary possibilities of the race, fill us with deep joy, for they are faithful photographs of our own inmost selves and patterns of the future outward perfection of all mankind. No wonder Sri Ramana, clad in his kaupina, the loincloth, had the air and authority of a solar emperor, and his name still has the news value of a cinema star's. While at school at Madurai, young Venkatraman read the Peri Puranam, a verse account of 63 Tamil Saivite saints. Thereafter, he often went to the great temple at Madurai and prayed to Shiva to add him too to his line of devotees. At 16, like Markandeya, he conquered mortality by meditating on the death of the body and thus realized the immortal self. Then he was drawn to Tiruvannamalai, where he stayed for 54 years, shedding the light of his benign influence on all alike. When Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni, the great Sanskrit scholar, was living with Maharishi early in 1908, something like a meteor appeared at dawn, touched the Maharishi's forehead, retreated, and came again and touched him 6 times. Again, on the night of April 14, 1950, as Maharishi cast off his body, a bright meteor shooting over the ashram was seen by all and sundry all over South India. In the Golden Jubilee Souvenir, published in 1946 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Maharishi's arrival at Arunachala, and in the 2 books of Self-Realization and Mahayoga, which describe his life and teachings, we get a wealth of views and impressions whose variety reflects the differences of the several writers and the freedom of approach which the sage not only permitted but welcomed in his devotees and disciples. Swami Siddheshwarananda, M. Oliver Lacombe, Professor S. Radhakrishnan, and Dr. C.G. Jung, among others, bring out authoritatively the traditional aspect of Maharishi's achievement and show how he represents the culmination of the Advaitic thought. The detailed description of the Jivan Mukta as found in the Upanishads, the Gita, Vivekachudamani, and other religious classics was fully borne out by the experience and behavior of Sri Ramana. His apt and telling expositions of Advaita Vedanta brought its truth home to the simplest folk. To a question on the relation between Karma Yoga and Nishkama Karma, he gave an answer in the manner of a Zen master. Without uttering a word, he walked up the hill, picked up a stick, and fashioned it into a walking stick. He gave it to a passerby. Then he said, the making of the walking stick is Karma Yoga. The gift of it is Nishkama. The sage did not make it or take it for himself. Similarly, the making and eating of applams served as an allegory and a sacrament. Allegory, of course, is a tale which has deeper meanings. The Appalam song has very deep meanings. And sacrament is an offering that connects the humans with the spirit. And Appalam song definitely is a sacrament. Apart from his spoken, acted, and written teachings, the simple human friendliness of Bhagavan showed the utter saulabhya, the easy accessibility of the ultimate truth when it graciously chooses to embody itself in human form. Bhagavan was not merely a yogi or a teacher or a saint. He was a seer, a being comprehending and transcending all these lower categories, and he succeeded in being a friend of everyone, sinner or saint, prince or peasant, old or young, learned or ignorant, man or woman, cow, dog, monkey, or peacock. Many years ago, J.C. Moloney, ICS, noted how his hound preferred the hermit's, Bhagavan's, company to his own. Hundreds of quite ordinary human visitors to the ashram were treated like intimate friends by Maharishi, who took the most sympathetic interest in all their personal affairs. The train they came by, the food they ate, the marriages and deaths, the appointments and promotions that occurred in their families. No one felt he was unimportant or unwanted. Women and Harijans, outcasts, were no less welcome than learned Brahmins to his charmed circle. If the good teacher is a friend who joins you where you are and leads you up to that point, to the mountain top of the truth, then Maharishi is the greatest teacher the world has seen. I'll read that again. He is giving the reason for his title. If the good teacher is a friend who joins you where you are and leads you up that point, from that point to the mountain top of truth, then Maharishi is the greatest teacher the world has seen, because he refused to stretch us. He refused to stretch us on the Procrustean bed of creed or conduct. This Procrustean is a Greek mythological person who would, to put it mildly, try to cut off a person who goes beyond the bed he is providing and will try to stretch a person to fit the bed he has provided. So Bhagavan was not like that, says the professor. Truth, Maharishi is the greatest teacher the world has seen because he refused to stretch us on the Procrustean bed of creed or conduct. He did not merely concede as a matter of formal politeness, but convinced everyone of his devotees and disciples that there are as many distinct ways of reaching the goal as there are unique human individuals. The professor is saying Bhagavan accepted that each person could be a path to the truth. I'll read that part again. He did not merely concede this as a matter of formal politeness, no, but convinced everyone of his devotees and disciples that there are as many distinct ways of reaching the goal as there are unique human individuals. In his conversation with children, birds, and animals, one noticed the outflow of a more active, spontaneous grace because no doubt these unspoiled creatures were more at home in his world of integral joy. Although in intellectual discussions, Maharishi took his uncompromising stand on Shankara's Advaitic Vedanta and disclaimed any originality, still he popularized, if he did not invent, a technique of self-enquiry which renders easy and aseptic that essential operation which destroys the mind and releases the spirit from its entanglement with world and flesh. I'll repeat that, which professor says as the main contribution of Bhagavan. Although in intellectual discussions, Maharishi took his uncompromising stand on Shankara's Advaita Vedanta and disclaimed any originality, still he popularized, if he did not invent, a technique of self-enquiry which renders easy and aseptic that essential operation which destroys the mind and releases the spirit from its entanglement with the world and the flesh. All questions that trouble the seeker are reducible and should be reduced to the one question, who am I? Ultimately, the question, who am I, will lead to the discovery and realization of the self, the winning of the egoless state in which there are no questions, no answers, but only silence, only the calm joy of pure being. Bhagavan has no creed of his own because he is egoless. What we can learn from him is the application to religion of the strictly scientific temper and the method of tentative, disinterested inquiry. All beliefs are to be held only tentatively, never bigottedly, because all beliefs will one day be consumed in the fire of experience of the self. By the steady, disinterested, impersonal use of the question, who am I, the devotee of the seer slowly develops into his disciple. The guru without is slowly merged in the guru within. The knot of the mind, ego sense, which binds the real self to the world and the body, is worn out or cut off, and the joyous peace of pure being is attained. The primary ignorance consists in the identification of ourself with the body. This can and should be got rid of by the tentative acceptance and systematic practice of Bhagavan's method of inquiry. And the result may be seen for oneself by any honest experimenter. All earlier systems of meditation and spiritual practices are superseded and transcended by this final, all-comprehensive and all-powerful technique of Sri Ramana. Self-reliance, Bhagavan is quoted here by the writer. Self-reliance, as commonly understood, is ego-reliance and it worsens bondage. Reliance on God alone is true self-reliance because He, God, is the self. All the free will that we need and ought to enjoy can be exercised in the process of experiment and inquiry. In the infinite variety of applications of the question, who am I? This single question gives us the exposure to all free will, says the writer. Sri Ramana's simple message is, the best way for one to serve the world is to win the egoless state. The best way for one to serve the world is to win the egoless state. If you are anxious to help the world but think you cannot do so by attaining the egoless state, then surrender to God all the world's problems along with your own. So the two paths of Bhagavan are delineated. Then comes the last paragraph. Not only when the moon shines brightly and the nightingales divinely sing, not only in the hushed presence of a mighty seer, but all the time and everywhere, we should know the feeling that the unplumbed, salty, estranging sea of samsara is a mere surface phenomenon, and that we, mortal millions, are not so many separate floating islands, but parts of a single continent, all rooted in the solid and self-sustaining ground of being. This, the great English teacher, professor, has taken from a poem. In that poem, the contents are somewhat like this, that the poet actually is worried that we are all individuals like islands, and the whole creation is like a huge ocean separating us. And once in a way, when the nightingale sings or the moon shines brightly, we all have this cry, oh, we are not separate beings, we are indeed all one. But then that is very short-lived, claims the poet, and again we are lost in the distinctions and in the estranging deep sea. But the English professor is saying that should not be taken as true. I'll read that paragraph again. Not only when the moon shines brightly and the nightingales divinely sing, not only in the hushed presence of the mighty seer, not only when we are in the Ramana Sannidhi, but all the time and everywhere, we should know the feeling that the unplumbed, salty, estranging sea of samsara is a mere surface phenomenon, and that we, mortal millions, are not so many separate floating islands, but part of a single continent, all rooted in the solid, life-sustaining ground of pure being. That is Bhagavan's teachings, that there is no separation anywhere in creation. It is all only the pure self. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. It's a great joy to have Professor K. Swaminathan come alive once again for me. In fact, probably more alive in a way, because what we heard as children, we probably did not understand the words of Professor K. Swaminathan. But listening to his words now, very beautifully read out by Nandamanji, my mind goes back to the satsangs and the presence, the feel of Professor K. Swaminathan, and I could feel as if I could hear him talking, though he would talk in a very different style, but still I could feel the Professor Mama, as we used to call him, talking to us, satsang after satsang, sharing the glory of Bhagavan Ramana. We now go on to that bedrock to which Bhagavan takes us, and which, as Professor K. Swaminathan says, is the promise Bhagavan holds out to every one of us through that path which he has simplified for us, if not invented, as Professor Swaminathan has said. He has simplified and made it available to one and all. That's why he says popularized it. So that path of self-inquiry, let us follow. Dilip Simha will be guiding us in today's session.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamra Ravindekshanam Bhaktabhishtabara Bhayapradakaram Kaupinamatruchvalam रसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्यङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षातात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामज्जतव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. Namo Ramana. We will commence the Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadeshan. I will be reading from the book Guruvachika Kovai from the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic, Blessed for the Evening, by Bhagavan is Not Uttering Falsehood. Verse 820. Not keeping your word by refusing to give someone something that you have previously promised to hand over is a much greater mistake than wholeheartedly instructing an unfit person that Atmaswarupa is the supreme reality. I read the verse again. Not keeping your word by refusing to give someone something that you have previously promised to hand over is a much greater mistake than wholeheartedly instructing an unfit person that Atmaswarupa is the supreme reality. Bhagavan, through this verse, is bringing to our attention that if we made a promise to someone about something, it is not that we have made a promise to a body, to a mind, to an individual. We have promised to the Supreme Self in that person. And therefore, not to hand over what one had promised to that Supreme Self is much greater mistake than if somebody wholeheartedly gave the instruction of the truth to an unfit person, a person who may misuse, misconduct, or may not understand. Whatever way we can look at that unfit person, the definition as. But if somebody wholeheartedly gives him the Atmaswarupa, the supreme reality, because the Shastras say that truth should not be given to an unfit person. But if someone does that mistake, but the mistake of not holding on to one's promise is far more greater, says Bhagavan, because in the second act, somebody is giving the truth, even though it may be misused, in a good spirit that the other person who is receiving is nothing but the truth himself. Whereas in the first approach, without knowing that we are actually promising to a self, to the Supreme Self, to assume that we are simply promising to some individual and therefore that we need not fulfill and can get away is going to cause a lot more problems, says Bhagavan here. Therefore, it becomes important for us, through this, Bhagavan is saying that there is only one self, as Nandakumarji said, though there may be many islands, but it is actually not many islands, it is one being that is there. Therefore, it is important for us to get back to that truth which alone is. And for that, the only way is to transcend these differences. This, the foremost of the differences, is the individual idea. And therefore, Bhagavan says that whenever a thought rises, we should diligently inquire to whom is this thought. Thereupon, it becomes very clear this thought is for me. That is the first division, I as an individual. And Bhagavan then asks to further question, who am I? In a way, to look at the source of that I thought. In a way, to really inquire what we refer to as I. And when we do so, that one truth, that one self alone is found to be there. And we see that all these divisions, all the superimposition of the divisions is what making us go bewildered time and again. So with repeated practice, Bhagavan says that the mind will gain enough strength to abide at the source. The immense grace of Bhagavan, with which we have come to this most direct path of Atma Vichara. For the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Thank you all.
Namo Ramana. The silence into which self-inquiry takes us, the pure silence of the self, we see embodied as Dakshinamurti, the Adi Guru. So we have Sri Venkatesh Deshpande doing the manana on Dakshinamurti Stotra.
Namo Ramana. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Ramanacharya Paryanta Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara. Ramana. We are doing manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. The question that comes up, why do we do manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram at all? God in the form of the Guru, God in the form of the Guru with form takes me to the formless. God with the form of the Guru with form takes me to the formless. When I transcend the form, I become fearless because I am deathless. That's why we do manana on the Dakshinamurti Stotram. And I'll request Sapna to kindly do manana on the Dhyana Shloka as well as verse number 5.
Yes, sir. मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितः परब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवानां वर्षिष्टान्ते वसदृषिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दमूर्तिं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियाण्यपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्दजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ता भृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पित महाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियाण्यपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ता भृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पित महाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. So Dhyanam Shloka says, I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru who teaches the knowledge of the Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is the teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, and who reveals in himself, and who is ever silent. We go to the verse number 5. He who removes all the terrible misconceptions created by the deluding play of Maya, in those who intellectually innocent as a woman, child, blind, idiot, and consider the reality as the body, or their prana, or their senses, or their ever-changing intellect, or as a mere void, and through error, misconceptions, declare them to be the only reality. To him, the divine teacher, Sri Dakshinamurti, is this prostration. So everyone has an opinion. I'll do a little bit recap of what we did the last satsang. Everybody has an opinion. However, this verse specifically refers to the opinion on the self, opinion about who am I. Interestingly, when someone has opinion, they do not say it is their opinion. They say it is what it is. They claim what they know is the absolute truth. They also express the opinion or teach others all the time. People have opinion on spiritual matters are referred to as philosophers here. In reality, opinions are typically based on individuals' orientation. This verse refers to a different opinions about I am this, ahamiti. So we all saw that some people have opinion about their body, deham ahamiti. Some people have opinion that I am the life force, which is prana mahamati. Some people have opinion that chalam buddhi ahamiti, maybe that I am that active intellect. Others say I am the non-existence, shunyam ahamiti. On the surface, it sounds ridiculous to say that I am non-existence. However, people who say that are not ridiculous. They are sophisticated philosophers. They have a doctrine called emptiness, Shunyavada. This Shunyavada is also called Nairatmavada. These different types of philosophers mentioned above express the opinion all the time. The reason being of their marketing about their opinion is that they are deluded, they are confused. Not surprisingly, their opinions are based on their own personal experience. It is based on their own perspective, and almost invariably, it is not the full truth. You can have the opinion about politics, about economics, about anything, and your opinion probably expresses some truth. Your opinion probably does not express the whole truth. Every opinion would probably have its limitation. According to Sri Shankara, all such people have opinions or doctrines are confused. Vedas are the means of knowledge. Pramanam, they represent the complete truth. The truth is not expressed by opinions of deluded people. Sri Shankara describes type of confused people have all these different opinions. So The world is full of such deluded people. So almost everyone will tell you that this body is me, or life force is me, or senses are me. These are common perspectives. As a Vedantin, you live in a world of non-Vedantin. You live surrounded by people who don't share Vedantic perspective. Their conclusions are very different from yours. Their influence can cause confusion. So we need help to remove these wrong conclusions. We find that in the last verse, last part of this verse. This is another single long compound. Samasa, Sri Dakshinamurti removes the great complete delusion, external ignorance. The wrong conclusions are particularly problematic because it gets projected on the mind. That causes thoughts to get jumbled. Literally means play. Vilasita means that which is played with or disturbed or upside down. This great confusion gets projected into our lives. It causes complete jumble. The impact of the jumble is so strong that we wrongly conclude this body is real, Satchidananda Atman is not. It is a wrong conclusion that Satchidananda Atman is not real but a concept. Such conclusion is based on complete ignorance. The reality is completely opposite. Satchidananda Atman is real. Everything else, such as body, mind, and senses, is unreal. People say existence of unborn, uncreated, unchanging self is not real. This is vilasa. Understanding of real and unreal is jumbled. What could cause this jumble? The capacity, Shakti of Maya. Ignorance, while referring to an individual, Maya means ignorance. Ignorance, the only evil. Why Sri Shankara is using so many adjectives for ignorance? Why is the describing ignorance as something so horrible? The reason ignorance is so horrible. Why are there so many wars? Why should one person kill another? Why there are so many dirty politics at work? Why there are indifferences in community? Why there are strained relationships within families? Look at the social problem in the world, not just today, but throughout the history. Problems of discrimination and problems like unfairness built into the society, caste distinction, terrorism. The sole cause of all these problems is nothing but ignorance. One of the most profound but incredibly underappreciated aspects of the Hindu Vedic tradition is the understanding of evil as one's own ignorance. Many theologies consider evil as external power or other people. From Vedantic perspective of ancient rishis, there is no evil person. Every person is innately divine. I'll repeat this sentence. Very, very important. And this is also which Bhagavan says in the Ekashloki, Hridaya ko haramadhye ke valam brahma matram. From the Vedantic perspective of ancient rishis, there is no evil person. Every person is innately divine. However, divine people seem to be capable of doing horrible action because of ignorance. All the horrors of life at worldly level, such as war, are due to ignorance, considering others as evil. At individual level, all the human suffering is due to ignorance, but a different kind of ignorance. This personal ignorance is a failure to recognize your own divinity. The non-recognition of the self that you are the Satchidananda Atman leads to individual suffering. So we think we are the snake, but we have forgotten actually we are the rope. So that's what is this personal ignorance is the failure to recognize your own divinity, the non-recognition of the self that you are Satchidananda Atman leads to the individual sufferings. Guru is the remover of this ignorance. Ignorance can be removed. Who can remove the ignorance? Knowledge. But the knowledge does not generally come from nowhere. Knowledge generally comes from a source. The source could be a teacher, Guru. Just as in the presence of light, darkness goes away, the knowledge of the true self removes the ignorance, the cause for all human suffering. This syllable gu stands for the darkness of ignorance, and ru represents its remover. A guru is so called because he removes the ignorance. So that is why in Hindu tradition, all the teachers, whether spiritual or academic, are revered. Every teacher is empowered to remove the ignorance. In more simple sense, it is with the help of the teachers that we come up in life. The quality of our lives is determined largely by our education. Therefore, in Hindu tradition, there is tremendous respect given to the teachers. Any vidya is good. Any vidya is good. Knowledge is good. But if you are able to give self-knowledge to a person, that is the greatest contribution. This is exactly what the Vedanta says. Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. This salutation is unto that who removes the ignorance, who is in the form of my Guru, Shri Gurumurtaye, as well as in the form of Shri Dakshinamurti. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. The Guru appears in the form of Dakshinamurti, as we have seen, and same Shiva as Shiva himself has given Upadesha to Mother Parvati. This is recorded in the Agamas as Devi Kalotaram, Jnana Vichara Padala, and we will be having Dr. Kalarani Rangaswami's Mananam on this text.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலம். Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw, when one wants to extinguish the fire that is burning in a fireplace or a homaguntam, he is not supposed to put more firewood in it. He has to remove the firewood from that place. When they are taken out, then without any effort, the fire can be put off. It will be calm. Likewise, when the mind is to abide in the self, the Vishaya Jnana, the thought about the world, the illusion, must be taken out from the mind. Then the mind will automatically merge at its original place, Atma. When there is no attachment towards worldly objects, there will be nothing that can be taken into the mind. Actually, there is nothing to be think over also, because everything is happening according to Ishvara Chittam. ஆட்டு வித்தால் யார் ஒருவர் ஆடாதாரே, அடக்கு வித்தால் யார் ஒருவர் அடங்காதாரே, ஊட்டு வித்தால் யார் ஒருவர் உண்ணாதாரே, உறங்கு வித்தால் யார் ஒருவர் உறங்காதாரே. Beautifully it is said. I'll tell you an example, because once there was a poor farmer plowing his land. He heard a cry of a boy at a distance. So he immediately rushed to the direction from where the sound of the cry came. He found he was going to be drowned in a muddy ditch. Somehow or the other, he saved him. The next day, a big car, a very costly car, came and stood in front of his house, and a wealthy person climbed down from that car and introduced himself to be the father of that boy whom the farmer saved the previous day. profusely thanked him and offered a huge amount of money to the farmer, but the farmer refused it. He offered a blank check. No, he said, I don't want. Then the rich man saw the farmer's son, a boy of 6, was doing his homework sitting at the side. He immediately said, okay, you need not accept money. I will take care of your son's education. Is that okay? Farmer said, okay. Let him study what all he wants to study. Actually, the rich man was Lord Randolph Henry Churchill, father of Sir Winston Churchill, who became British Prime Minister. The farmer's son studied very well and he discovered penicillin. He was actually the Alexander Fleming. Once, Winston Churchill fell ill very seriously, and Alexander Fleming penicillin only saved his life. So, Churchill was saved twice. Once when he was a boy by Alexander Fleming's father, and second time by Alexander Fleming himself. This is the play of the God. We don't know. We cannot guess what for anything is happening. God's calculation is completely different. So we need not make our mind to wander over the worldly objects or happenings. We need not think for what this is happening. Because whatever is going to happen is determined, is already determined. And there will be some reason, some reason or the other for that happening. So we need not worry about anything. So in the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Mogigai Mayaye Murchigai Swapanam ஆகிய இந்நான்கு அவஸ்தைகளும் மோகிகை மாயையே மூர்ச்சிகை ஸ்வப்பனம் ஆகிய இந்நான்கு அவஸ்தைகளும் lust, illusion, losing one's prajna are different states of the same avastha. When a person sees one object and thinks of the object, he develops a desire to get the object, putting his mind over that object and wants to get that object somewhere or the other. And that is called lust. Because of this lust, he tries too many ways to get that particular object that he wants. He even goes to the extremity of following a wrong path to get that particular object, like indulging in a bank robbery if he wants money, if he have the lust for money, or become a money lender and charge a high rate of interest to fulfill his lust. If he has a lust for promotion in the office, he makes arrangements in a wrong way to stop the promotion of his person who is above him, a senior to him, and get the promotion for himself. When the mind wanders outside, we can be telling number of examples like this. But when even after trials in different angles, as I said, even in a wrong way of trial, the wanted, desired object does not come to his hand, or when the nature of the object desired is covered by the lust for the object, is then there, that is called Maya. Because we see the object differently. We see the object differently. We don't see the true nature of that object. We say this is a laptop, this is a dress, this is the dress of my friend, and this is a tree. There are different, we see them differently. And we see them as it is seen. That is Maya. We think a person to be very good and the other person to be very bad. By some happening, we feel sorrow because we think that this happening is wrong. It should not have happened. It should not have happened. Say for example, if a thief enters our house, how bad we feel. We will call the police immediately and take necessary action. Actually, thieves came to Ramanashramam also when Bhagwan was with some devotees. When the thieves knocked the door, devotees said, "We will beat them, Bhagwan." Bhagwan smilingly said, "Let them do their work. We are all sadhus. We are not supposed to indulge in such things." Saying so, he said loudly, "Oh, persons, wait. Don't break the door. I will come and open it for you." When the thieves did not find anything to be robbed, they gave nice blows to the devotees. They did not even leave Bhagwan. Next day, when the police came for inquiry and asked Bhagwan, "Bhagwan, can you please identify the person who bit you?" Bhagwan said, "Maybe in the last Janma, I must have beaten him. And in the next Janma, he did it for me. That's all. Just leave it." That incident did not make any impact on Bhagwan because he saw the God in each and every one, each and every object, each and every person. In fact, he saw himself in all. When Bhagwan was ill, ashram authorities restricted the darshan for Bhagwan. Bhagwan said, "Why are you restricting people for darshan? I am sitting here not to give darshan, but I myself is getting darshan of Arunachaleshwara by seeing those devotees." That is the state of a jnani. When we look at each and every object as Arunachala, then there can be no difference in the object or in the happenings in the world. In Aksharamana Malai also Bhagwan says, "Arunachalamena agame ninaipavar, agathai veraruppai Arunachala." Until one sees the true nature of all objects and he considers the object to be true as seen by him, there exists Maya. In that state, we develop hatred, anger, frighten, and experience the sorrow to a great extent that we forget everything and only that sorrow will be sitting in our mind and nothing else. There will be a state of stillness. In Tamil, Bhagwan puts this as murchai. When a person expects to happen, say, for example, something to happen, when he expects something to happen, say, for example, marriage with a person that he wanted, that itself is a Maya, actually. If it does not happen, let's imagine, his sorrow goes to that extent, he does not want to eat, he does not want to sleep or do any routine work, or any sort of stillness catch hold of him. In Tamil, Bhagwan says murchai, as I said earlier, inactiveness, not coming out of that sorrow. Or sometimes we hear something which we think we should not have heard. We might have heard we might have a great faith in a person, but when we learn that person deceived us, we feel so sorry that we lament, "How can he do such an injustice to me? How deeply I believed him." In that state, the sorrow goes to that extent that one loses his prajna, that is murchai. So, lust, maya, and losing of one's prajna are all three different states of the same avastha. Bhagwan says in this stanza, along with these three, one has to destroy the state of dream and sulupti. None of these avastha is needed. They are the state of ajnana, in fact. They reveal ajnanam. So, they are to be destroyed completely. Mohigai, mayaye, மூச்சிகை, ஸ்வப்பனம் ஆகிய 4 அவஸ்தைகளும் ஏக சுளுப்தியோடு சாக்கிரம் சொல்லும் இவை எல்லாம் ஒழித்து விட வேண்டும் உணர். These avasthas has to be destroyed without any remain. There should be no last piece. So only this will give good fruit of residing in one's self. Once abidance in the self is made, then whatever we see in the world, we see only the self and nothing other than the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with Mananam sharing on meditations on Ganapati Muni's Ramanacentre Bengaluru by Ujjwal Jagadish.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Dharme nashamupagate tribhuvane palyakule papatah prajnane parito giram patimuda sancharyamane janaihi sadbhave parameshwarasya cha pitu sandehadolangate dvipakaitavamatyakekituraga swamantara kasatam ramanaya lokagurave namaha ramanaya lokagurave namaha ಧರ್ಮನಾಶವಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ತ್ರಿಲೋಕವು ಮರುಳಾಗಿದೆ ಪಾಪದಿ ನಿಜ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅರಿಯದ ಜನರು ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ತೊಡಗಿಹರು ವಾಗ್ವಾದದಿ ಸದಾ ಪೊರೆವ ತಂದೆ ಪರಮೇಶನೇ ಇರುವೆ ಸಂದೇಹಿಸಲ್ಪಡುತ್ತಿದೆ ರಕ್ಷೆ ನೀನೆ ನರವೇಶಿನ ವಿಲು ವಾಹನನೆ ನಿನಲ್ಲದೆ ಇತರಾರೆ ಮಗೆ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. In this verse of Ramanacentre Bengaluru written by Ganapati Muni, Ramana says, "Oh, the one who rides on the peacock, the rider of the peacock who is known for his effective action." In the story of the Jnana Phalam, it is told that when the competition was announced, saying that between Ganesha and Subramanya, who will go round this world and come quickly back to Kailasa will get the Jnana Phalam. And no sooner as this instruction was given, he quickly set on the journey to around the world. So he is known for quick action. The one who rides on the peacock, Subramanya. Oh Subramanya, you are known for quick action, and your quick action is required now, because it is now the time has come for you to come and save all the people who are all deluded by confusion, who are bewildered, and you are the only solace, you are the Dvipa, you are the only solace to all these people. I see that the dharma is declining, and the people think that speaking of words alone is great wisdom, but they are not able to understand that the true wisdom lies in silence. And the people are even doubting the presence of that Supreme Father who is ever existing, without whose existence there cannot be any manifestation, there cannot be any other existence possible, and who alone is the true existence. They are forgetting his presence, and they are debating that such a great one, the Supreme One, does not exist at all. They are in this deluded state. Ramana, to save these people with illusion, you have to come down to earth in the human form and bless the world as the world teacher. In the story of Sadashiva Brahmendra, Brahmendra was a great scholar. He was studying under a great guru, and under the guru's guidance, he had learned all the Vedas, all the Shastras, all the Upanishads, and all the various commentaries on these Upanishads and Vedas. And he had also learned the logic, Tarka. And he was going about every committee of scholars, and he used to go to the scholars and challenge them to a debate. And he used to always win in the debates. He used to make all other fall down in the debate. And he used to be winning everywhere. And he was so proud of himself, so proud of his learning, that he is able to make everyone lose in this great adventure of debate. And he was going around debating everywhere, making everyone lose and winning in all the places. And one day he came to his teacher and was very, very proud of his achievements. And he told, Swami, by your grace and by the learning that I've learned under you, that I have been debating and winning in all my debates. I'm so thankful to you. And he was so proud, and he announced his success to his teacher. And his teacher, very, very disappointed. But because the truth of the Vedas lie in the silence, and that teacher who was so disappointed by his student that he has not understood the essence of the Vedas, which is silence, the teacher told, when will you stop talking? When will you stop debating? And as soon as he heard these instructions from his teacher, Sadashiva Brahmendra became silent. Not only silent physically, with words not spoken out of the mouth, but he became still within. And in that stillness, he was ever abiding in that Satchidananda, which is Sadashiva, the Shiva Tattva, which was shining within him. And without even the worry of the state in which his body was, without wearing any clothing, he was just happily going around in the streets of that city. And some of the students came and reported to the teacher, saying that, Swami, your student Sadashiva Brahmendra, who was a great scholar, who was debating everywhere and winning everywhere, now he has become silent. And I think he has become mad and crazy because he is going around the street without wearing any clothing. He has become mad. They reported to the teacher, and the teacher, with a smile, said, Aha, how lucky is he that he has attained that madness. The great seekers of truth, the great sadhakas are desiring that madness, that silence. And Sadashiva Brahmendra is enjoying that madness. So such is the glory of the silence. And the greatness is not there when we speak and talk about the truth. The Vedas say that those who know this truth do not speak about it. And those who speak do not know the truth. And Ramana gives a beautiful example when narrating the greatness of silence. He talks of the story of the eloquent silence. The greatest Upadesha, Ramana says, is silence. If a student, a true seeker who has come to the master can understand that silence, that very same silence which the Dakshinamurti spoke, if one can understand that silence, then no instruction is required. He will quickly abide in his own true nature, which is silence. But out of compassion that we are not able to understand that silence, the master speaks. But he says, whatever is spoken, we can only give directions. We can say, this is not the truth, this is not the truth. But the truth cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. He tells the story of Mother Sita and Rama. When Rama had come to visit all the sages in the forest, all the Rishi Patnis, they wanted to play a game with Sita. So because since Rama was also in an attire of a Rishi, of a sage, He was also wearing the bark dress. So Rama was made to stand in the row of the sages. And the Sakis, the Rishi Patnis, they took Sita and pointed out, is this Rishi Rama? And Sita used to nod her head and say, no, this is not Rama. And they moved to the next Rishi and they pointed and told, is this Rama? The Sita told, no, it is not Rama. In this way, they kept on showing one Rishi after the other, and the Sita kept nodding her head and telling, no, this is not Rama. No, this is not Rama. No, this is not Rama. And in the end, when Rama was pointed, no words were spoken by Sita, and she bashfully put her head down. Ramana says, after negating all the non-selves, we are not this body, we are not the mind, we are not the intellect, we are not even the breath, we are not the five senses, we are not the tamas of not knowing. When we negate everything and drop everything, what remains alone is the self. That alone, that cannot be expressed through words, that can be experienced only by silence. And this is the truth which Ramana has shown to us. And we can see that various devotees who came from various parts of the world, various parts of India, and all beings could communicate to Ramana, because Ramana spoke in that common language which everybody could understand. And that common language was silence. And Ramana has come to remove all these kuvadas, the discussions without any meaning, to remove all these kuvadas and to bless us with that supreme state of silence. He has come, and Ganapati Muni prays to him, O Ramana, this now is the right time for you to come and bless us with this teaching of silence. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. By the immense grace of the Self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the Ramana Ashtotra Shatanamavali composed by Vishwanatha Swami. In this part of the Satsang, we are meditating on the Namas of the Ashtotra. And we are on the Nama Tivraya Namaha. After having meditated on the Nama which shows that Bhagavan attained steady abidance in the self, Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha, Paramartha Vide Namaha. He became a knower of the self, and describing that state through a hint at what Bhagavan was as a young boy of 16, how that state completely overwhelmed him in its intensity. And actually that intensity remained with Bhagavan throughout his life. We see that throughout his earthly sojourn, until he dropped the body, every moment is filled with the intensity of self-abidance. Last time we read a few excerpts from how Bhagavan has described his condition or his state in which he was after his self-knowledge, the enlightenment, which actually happened 125 years ago. And he says, prior to that experience, I continue reading another excerpt. Prior to that experience, I had no clear perception of myself and was not consciously attracted to the self. So Bhagavan is here saying that every one of us is actually attracted to the self. In fact, he says that's what he begins in his Who Am I? He says that everyone wants to be happy, every being wants to be happy, and in every being is also found a love for their own self. This is because the self is of the nature of happiness. But here he says, just like we are now, maybe we are not attracted so intensely to the self. The Tivra, Of course, we are all attracted to the self, otherwise, we would not gather in a satsang. But that attraction may or may not be intense. So here Bhagavan says that prior to his enlightenment, he had no clear perception of the self, and I was not consciously attracted to the self. I had felt no direct perceptible interest in it. He says he was not particularly interested in it. He did not know what it was to be interested in the self. But he is again sort of indicating that he may have been interested in it. But he says no direct perceptible interest in it, much less any permanent disposition to dwell upon it. He said he never wanted to constantly dwell, permanent disposition to dwell on the self. That is the Tivra which Vishwanatha Swami is telling us about. Bhagavan did not want to do anything else. That young boy of 16 wanted to be constantly abiding in that state. Though he was abiding in that state, he wanted to be doing that to the exclusion of all else. Therefore, Vishwanatha Swami is describing that state as Tivra. So Bhagavan says, the changes in my life showed the consequences of this new habit. What is the new habit? The new habit was the intense and repeated turning back, even physically, to the self. Turning to the self. He had told us in the earlier quote which we shared last week that he was charmed by that. Here he says he had a permanent disposition to dwell on it. So what happened because of that? He says, in the first place, I lost any little interest I had in my outward relations with my friends, kin, studies, etc. He says he only had little interest even before that. That's what many people say, therefore, that Bhagavan was not interested in academics. But we saw in the earlier quote that he says, I was just reading, I was not paying attention to my studies and I did not understand the content. So he has indicated that earlier to that, he was paying attention to the studies, though he may not have been particularly interested in them. But here in this statement, he says that he did not even have any earlier interest in friends or kin, etc. because I lost any little interest I had. Okay, so he had little interest perhaps, he says. I went through my studies mechanically. I would take up a book and keep the page open before me to satisfy my elders that I was reading. Of course, Bhagavan had tricked his elders earlier for the sport. We saw during the meditation on the Nama, Srimad Dwadashanta Mahastale Labdha Vidyodayaya Namaha. We saw how Bhagavan and his elder brother Nagaswami would go out in the night every day for sports and martial arts and swimming. And they would put some pillows and close it with a sheet for the elders to think that he was asleep. Now, he was looking at the pages of the book for the elders to think that he was studying. But as for my attention, that was far away, gone far indeed from such superficial matters as study. So now he felt that the study was only superficial, as Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada says, it is just dukrunkarane, nahi rakshati dukrunkarane, samprapte sannihite kale. When the end comes, this study is not going to help. When a critical point in one's life, the most critical point of death comes, the study is not going to help. This Bhagavan knew as a boy of 16 because he had been Tivra in his inquiry into the self itself. He had been very intense. The intense state in which he was afterwards had already started with his inquiry into the self, which had been absolutely intense. He had said about that experience that the shock of the fear of death, it was so shocking, it was so intense, drove my mind inwards. So his mind was driven inward intensely, and that intense inquiry continued into intense awareness of the self, and that grabbed his attention intensely. Then he says, but of course he was different. In my dealings with relatives, friends, etc., I developed humility, meekness, and indifference. Okay. Then he says, sometimes I would sit alone by myself, especially in a posture suitable for meditation, close my eyes and lose myself in the all-absorbing concentration on myself, on the spirit, current or force, avesham, which constituted myself. I would continue so despite the constant jeers of my elder brother, who would mock me, etc., he says. So, while on the one hand, the awakening gave me a continuous idea or feeling that myself was a current or force in which I was perpetually absorbed, whatever I did. On the other hand, the possession, being possessed by that avesham, led me frequently to the temple. And he says, I would go almost every evening. I would go alone and stand before Shiva or Meenakshi or Nataraja or the 63 saints for long periods. I would feel waves of emotion overcoming me. The former hold on the body, alambana on the body, the hold. He says the spirit had held the body, I am the body. Now it has left that. Had been given up by my spirit, since it ceased to cherish the idea that I am the body. The spirit therefore longed to have a fresh hold, and hence the frequent visits to the temple and the overflow of the soul in profuse tears. This was God's play with the individual spirit, says Bhagavan, describing that intense experience. I would stand before Ishvara, the controller of the universe and the destinies of all, the omniscient and omnipresent, and pray for the descent of His grace upon me, so that my devotion might increase and become perpetual like that of the 63 saints. That innocence of that young boy who had this intense experience, and the most intense experience which he had had before that was the reading of the Periya Puranam. Just before that, he had read the Periya Puranam and he had felt the intensity, the tivratva of the devotion of all the 63 saints towards Shiva. So this intense experience which he was undergoing, he could only relate it very naturally to that intense experience. And he felt that since there was this avesham, this possession, and he did not even know what this intensity was about, he had no definition for it. So he almost naturally, the mind connected it very naturally to the intense experience of the 63 saints of the devotion, and he prayed for a similar devotion, says Bhagavan. Mostly, I would not pray at all, but let the deep within flow on and into the deep without. Tears would mark this overflow of the soul and would not betoken any particular feeling of pleasure or pain. It was just the flow of, he says, of the deep within into the deep without. There was no demarcation, but in some way there is the body, there is the manifestation which has experienced that intense Atmanubhava, which is just flowing forth, says Bhagavan. It is like being possessed by some great force. He says it was like, couldn't be described like a fever or anything, but it was like something something extraordinarily intense and huge had taken possession of him. But it was blissful and it was claiming his entire attention to itself. It was drawing him into itself. So that is when Bhagavan describes it, we see the nature of the self, which must be so beautiful, so blissful that it had completely absorbed him, completely took him over. And that this self is Arunachala, not different from Arunachala. At that point, he did not know, as he would say to us, describe to us in Arunachala Ashtakam. That knowledge came later when he was drawn to Arunachala. Arunachala later, Bhagavan says, had given me his own state and then pulled me to himself. Om Namo Bhagavan, Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue with the chanting of verses from Arunachala Aksharamanamale by Srimati Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Sombiya summa sugamundurangidu solverengati Arunachala. சௌரியம் காட்டினை சழக்கற்றதென்று சலியாதிருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. நமலிய கேடா நான் என்னுறுதிய நாடி நின்னுருவேன் அருணாச்சலா. ஞானமில்லாதுன்னாசையற்றழவர ஞானம் தெரித்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நிமிர பொனியும் மலரில்லை என்று நின்றன என் அருணாச்சலா. தத்துவம் தெரியாத தனை ஊற்றாய் தத்துவம் இதுவென் அருணாச்சலா. தானே தானே தத்துவம் இதனை தானே காட்டுவாய் அருணாச்சலா. திரும்பிய அகந்தனை தினமாக கண்காண் தெரியும் என்றென்ன என் அருணாச்சலா. தீரமில்லகத்தில் தேடி உந்தனையான் திரும்ப உற்றேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. துப்பறிவில்லாய் பிறப்பெண் பயன் ஒப்பிடவாயேன் அருணாச்சலா. தூய்மன மொழியர் தோயும் உண்மையகம் தோயவே அருளென் அருணாச்சலா. தெய்வம் என்றுன்னை சாரவே என்னை சேர ஒழி அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமணா.
Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara Puja to Bhagavan, which will be performed by Dilip Simha at his altar, and it will be chanted by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Uma and Ashwini, and the Aarti song will be rendered by Revathi Shankar. Before I conclude, I would like to invite all the devotees to participate along with us in the Shivratri celebrations, which are forthcoming this week. On the 1st of March, we have an all-night Shivratri celebration at Ramanacentre Shrine, near Makery Circle in Bengaluru. Those who are at Bengaluru can join us at any part of the night, beginning from 6:30, the pre-Shivaratri, the evening Ashtotra Puja, and then we'll have the cultural programs and the 4 Jama Pujas at 9, 12, 3 a.m. and on 2nd March at 6 a.m. through the whole night. This will also feature on our YouTube channel, as well as, of course, those who can be physically present with us at any part of the celebrations throughout the night are most welcome. All the devotees are welcome to join us. Now we have the Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चेत् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदचिन्तयामि ॐ महासे नमः शेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दराय तपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीन मानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंभ्रमाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासिंहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईद्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समद्विषे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री शोणाचलरुद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिस्तरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वामणिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौलेरस्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ रुच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्घिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्म ब्रह्मनिष्ठसमदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ. बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।